everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time to once again be back on the 2.29 dev server, and this time we're having a look at the 2S1. Now this isn't just coming to the Soviets, it's also coming to the Hungarians in the Italian tech tree. So you can check it out in both areas if you want. The only difference between them is, well, the camo, and of course their research. The USSR one is sat between a few vehicles. It's between the SU-100 and ISU-122S group and the 2S3M at rank 4. Looking at the Hungarian one, it sits at rank 4 once again, but between the Turan 3 and of course the BTR-80. So a little bit easier probably to get the Hungarian one. The USSR one, you have to get through quite a lot to get to it, but overall it should be completely fine. This is a pretty standard SPH. The only thing is it doesn't consistently have to rely on HE, which is one of the issues of a lot of these general vehicles. The 2S1 has a 122mm, the 2A31 has no stabilizer, has no bells and whistles, and has horrible targeting speed. Overall only 8.5 seconds rotation and 4.7 on the vertical. So quickly snapping two targets is not what this vehicle's going to do. You're going to have to set up shots quite aggressively or use the MTLB chassis, which this thing is on, to line up the gun and then wait for it to stop, wobbling and go forward with it. Doesn't have a machine gun, doesn't have any extra things. You are wholly reliant on the 122mm cannon and also at the same time its loader. The vehicle has a base load of 13 seconds, and with an ace crew it can get down to 10, which isn't too bad, but there's a lot of things that out-reload you at this BR by at least a couple of seconds. The armor profile, you're looking at 14mm on this vehicle. Nothing to write home about at all. 7mm on the side and 7 on the back, so you will get machine gunned to death. For a vehicle like this, it will happen a lot, especially since there's a lot of 50 cals around this BR, and also other things like Dishkas and things like that on the T-34 for, of course, the Chinese. So the vehicle's survivability is incredibly circumspect, is probably the way to put it. The gun depression is pretty bad, gun elevation is pretty good. And also, the engine is a 300 horsepower one, which for a 16-ton vehicle ain't too bad. Means that it can go forward at a good click, but unfortunately its transmission means its reverse is nowhere near as good, which kind of sucks. The ammo is located all around the loader. He is a glutton for punishment, this one, and that basically means that no matter where you shoot this vehicle, you should end up detonating it. If you shoot through the driver, this flat part here, or the turrets, you'll be able to kill the gunner and commander, and it won't really be able to recover. Or you can shoot here, kill these guys, or you can shoot anywhere over here, and if you shoot low, you hit the ammo, and if you shoot high, you also hit the ammo. So there's not a lot of survivability for this one as well. But it's not really supposed to be getting shot at, right? Like, it's an SPH at the end of the day. But even though it's an SPH, they have given it a Heat FS round, because in real life it had a Heat FS round, and the reason for this is if it did get attacked by vehicles, it would be able to direct fire them with the Heat FS. So it's a little saving grace for it. The vehicle starts off with a HE round. The 3OF24 has 6 kilos of TNT equivalent and also 50mm of penetration. There is also the Heat FS round we talked about, has a lot less explosive mass, only 1.67 kilos and 400mm of penetration overall. So this will be the round that I feel like if you want to be a bit more consistent with the vehicle, you use this one and you try your best to get kills with it, but because of that TNT equivalent, it'll pen a lot of vehicles, not really do too much, and kind of annoy a lot of people. Like, we're looking at yellowing ammo with a Heat FS like this, which isn't good. Then you got the HEVT. This one has 6 kilos of TNT equivalent as well, same penetration, just has a variably timed fuse setup. This means that it's good against going after aviation targets, but also it will be good at shooting above vehicles, so therefore the shell will bounce down and annihilate it as it goes in. The other shell it has is the OF56. Now, right now, I don't know the difference between this and this one, apart from the shell itself has a very slightly higher muzzle velocity, and also the projectile mass is around about, what is that, like 5 kilos less than the OF-24, but all of the other stats seem exactly the same, so maybe it's just a more efficient version of it, or maybe at the same time it just isn't fully modeled yet, which is probably more like what's going on for the vehicle itself, since that's something you see quite a lot. So for the 4-man crew, there is not a ton of space. The survivability is pretty bad, the mobility is pretty bad, and the gun has opportunities to donk things and do okay. And that is something that I feel like many people will enjoy. Usually with vehicles like this, like the Type 75, the bazooka cannon, you know, stuff like that, there is so much potential for having fun shots and also slightly different playstyles that you see from, you know, many different players to kind of come to the fore and work. But in War Thunder, most of the time, especially with the way that maps are getting way more streamlined compared to previous ways of playing, vehicles like this are getting harder and harder to play as they go forward. I'm hoping that that is something that will change, that is something that will shift, but with every map getting smaller and smaller, and also with a lot of the larger maps getting pushed to the higher echelons, vehicles like this just become cannons which kind of sit on corners and then, oh, somebody's turned up, better shoot them in the face, and then kind of go from there, right? Unfortunately, that is the case for this thing. It also has an arming radius on this round of 500 meters, which is quite a distance, by the way. So, for example, if you have a look at how far this Panzer is away, this one is only 350. So, in order to actually get this variably timed fuse to work, you're going to have to fire it above that by quite a lot. Like, this one is only 550. And if you, if you decide to use the variably timed fuse, maybe you'll be able to donk it into the thing, but it might just be easier to use the HE just because the engagement distances you're looking at for a vehicle like this is generally a lot lower. You can donk people with the round though, like it is possible, as we talked about. You can even like VT them to death, which is something that the Rhino does very effectively. But also, you have a decent chance of just missing, which is another thing that is a bit of a problem. And once you miss in this thing, you're going to be sat there for a long time thinking about your life choices and why you didn't just play, you know, the T-34 or the IS-1 or the IS-2. Instead, you're just going to be sat here wondering why you decided to play this vehicle and is it worth it. But then every so often, you'll get that magical shot where you'll just annihilate whatever is in front of you, and you'll be able to feel good again. And that's how these SPHs get you. That's how they work. It's kind of like a RNG card game. Every so often you have a round where you shoot vehicles and they just pop and they just absolutely disappear from existence, especially if it's against a light vehicle, and that feels really nice and really positive. But also you'll get times where you'll just rock up, you'll see targets like the Tiger II, which you can't really pen or do anything against, and you'll slightly miss its extremity where maybe you'll be able to overpressure it, and then it just looks at you and you die. And that is more of my type of experience with these things instead. I understand why a lot of people like stuff like this, the 2S1, especially since it's been given Heat FS, giving it some kind of lease of life. But also at the same time, there's a reason why in the BR changes pretty much every type of vehicle went up apart from this type, and it's because they ain't doing very well. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Brendan Quinn, Vilneus, Character Fuel, Juan the Panda, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, Bareen, Peter Grayling, Alan Hacker, Sem Alslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R., and also Lafouche for supporting the channel.